I've lost friends over this, like close friends. I lost a relationship with somebody that I was really in love with and wanted to be with. That ended because of this.
Hey, Nathaniel.
Hey, how's it going?
Good, great to finally meet you.
I'm Nathanial, First Amendment Auditor.
Douglas, thanks for coming out today.
Hi, groovy. Pleasure to be here.
So just to start, can you tell me, what is a First Amendment Auditor?
A First Amendment Auditor is someone who tests their right to record in public. And, so by doing that, you go to a specific place, whether it be a government facility, a private company, a religious organization, and you stand outside and you film from public property where you have a right to be. And so it's basically to see if the staff, management, security, if there is any, is going to be able to respect your right, or is going to be willing to respect your right to record in public. So it's like a test. That's really what a First Amendment audit is. It's a test.
Perfect. I actually brought a little pocket constitution. I was thinking maybe you could read us the First Amendment and then we could go into detail about that.
Okay, yeah.
Is that good?
The First Amendment of the United States Constitution, religious and political freedom. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press or the right of the people to peacefully assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. I, as a First Amendment auditor, consider myself to be an activist. And, as an activist, I'm doing something that's can be considered educational. That's why a lot of times in my videos I'll say things like, educate the public if given the opportunity, because that's really what it's about. You are testing your right. It is a test, like I mentioned earlier, but it's really also a chance to educate the public. So I think that's equally important. Some First Amendment auditors want it to be just about holding government accountable. To me, it's not really so much about holding the government accountable, even though that's part of it. To me, it's about, exercising your right to record in public and educating the public. Because when you really think about it, cameras are a part of everyday life. I'm looking at one right now, there's cameras all under the pier, all around here. Really in this, day and age, there's really nowhere you can go now where you're not on camera. Unless you're gonna go out to like Rabbit Dry Lake Bed or somewhere, So why are people so afraid of cameras? And so I think this is really important work, in addition to being, entertaining for a lot of people. But I think it's really important to show people like, hey, you don't have to be afraid of a camera. It's just, it's not a gun, it's not a weapon, it's just a camera.
And can you walk me through a typical First Amendment audit, what that looks like, maybe how someone passes or fails?
First Amendment audits are based on like a pass-fail type system, where you, I'm saying like that like it's so official, like I should pull out the First Amendment Auditor's Handbook. But really a First Amendment audit is, as I mentioned earlier, it's a test. So it's almost like getting an A or an F, and there really just isn't no typical First Amendment audit. There's, the format of it, like, the intro, get some establishing shots, do some narration. Like I like to do history. Not all auditors like to do that. I'm here at Duke's and it was opened in 1955, blah, 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 or whatever. But, and then the interaction, and obviously that's what everybody's waiting for. And that can just, that's like the stock market. It just, you just never know what you're gonna, it could be a high reaction, it could be a low reaction. It's just, I think I did it the wrong way, but, yeah.
And what do you think is like the perfect outcome of your work? Is it that somebody passes, or also as like a content creator, are you hoping that maybe sometimes people fail so then we have a little bit of entertainment?
Well, the thing about the results of a First Amendment audit is that it really, for entertainment purposes, a fail is what, that's what gets you the high numbers. You know, a pass, although I like passes because I feel better when I get a pass. Like the video that I just put up today, is a pass. And at the end of it, as the individual that made contact with me is walking away, I go like, I said something to the effect of, well, this is what I like to see. I like seeing things like this. And typically on like a personal level, like I feel better when it's a pass because I walk away from it going like, okay, nobody's upset, like I got what I came here for. Maybe the individual or individuals I encountered are a little bit more educated now, but for entertainment value, it's not that. It's kind of like, do you think the Jerry Springer show would be as successful if everybody just sat around and drank tea and like, politely, spoke with you? Yeah, it wouldn't happen, There'd be no show. So, yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna lie. When I do get a big freak out, not that I solicit that, but when somebody does come out and yeah, and yell and holler and stuff, yeah, in the back of my mind, I'm thinking like, okay, yeah, this is gonna be a banger. This is really gonna go through the roof. But at the same time, there's also a part of me that goes like, did I just ruin this guy's day? Like, is he gonna go home now and yell at his wife or yell at his kids because of something? I mean, I'm not saying, obviously I'm not responsible for that. I mean, I can't dictate how people are gonna react, but still there's that part of me that thinks like, but then there's also the part that goes, oh yeah, this is gonna be all the green arrows are gonna go up on this one.
Since you've been doing this type of work for so long, have you seen any shift in the general public or like policies of different organizations and how they handle a First Amendment audit?
Back in the day, when I first got involved in this movement, nearly 10 years ago, the main focus was on like police accountability, government accountability. Now, and I've seen a major change as far as the way police officers respond to First Amendment auditors. I mean, I remember back in the day, when we would go out and film, we meaning like me and other auditors or cop watchers or whatnot, would go out and film the police, it was kind of scary. I mean, they didn't, I think the big difference is it's not so much that they respect what they're doing or what we're doing. I mean, maybe some do, but I think what it really is now, I think, is there's just a lot more awareness. I mean, despite, what some people may want to believe, cops aren't stupid. I mean, they know what we're up to. They know what we're doing. If I go walk across the street and audit a Dairy Queen and the cops come out, as soon as they see me right away, they're going to know, whether they know who I am or recognize me, they're going to know what's up. So initially it went from, police accountability and government accountability to auditing like private businesses, because it's like, well, hey, the public is at this point is what really needs the education. It's the general public. But now First Amendment auditing has just gotten so mainstream that if you go audit anywhere, a hotel or Sandy's Beach Bar or whatnot, chances are there's going to be somebody in there that's going to be like, oh, it's one of those First Amendment guys, which sometimes can kind of kill it. Not always. Sometimes it can like, oh, I'm going to go out there and show them who's boss, or, so it's, but I see now, I see where we are now with First Amendment auditing. I see the public being more aware.
If somebody wanted to become a First Amendment auditor, what would they have to do?
For those who are thinking about getting into this crazy movement called First Amendment auditing, well, the simple answer is going to be don't do it. It's not worth it. Yeah. But for someone who's really passionate about it and wants to get started, I'm not gonna lie. It's hard now. Because it wasn't like when I first started. This was a much smaller community. I've had people tell me like that I'm part of that first generation of auditors, and there really wasn't like where I live up on the Central Coast, which is Santa Barbara County, San Luis Obispo County, that area. I mean, I was the only one. There was no Slow Observer, there was no 805 Cop Watch, there was no Katie Kidman, none of these people existed. It was, and so when I would do these audits, law enforcement and the people, in official capacity just really didn't know what I was doing. Obviously that's not the case anymore. So I would say it was a lot more dangerous at that time. Like if somebody was thinking about getting into it back then, I was like, hey, you need to really, really think about it. Now it's more a thing of, as far as, I guess it depends on the reason that they want to get into it, because if somebody wants to get into it because they want to be YouTube famous, I'm gonna be like, good luck. I mean, you better really be out there doing some high intensity banger audits, because it just, there's just so many auditors now, it's like everyone's an auditor, it's somebody, and also too, like the people that like inspired me, like channels like First Amendment Tests and Honor Your Oath and Liberty is for Everyone, their videos were like a production. They had, store-bought, they had real cameras, and they did, quality editing. Now you got all these people that just go out and do crappy live streams with their phone, and it's like, okay, I mean, maybe some people are into that, but so I think it's hard to really like make a name for yourself now. But if you just want to do it simply for the activism, and hey, if you make it big on YouTube, great. If you don't, then I think it's a lot safer now. It's definitely a lot safer, but I mean, that doesn't mean that you're not ever going to encounter. I would say, like, always be prepared for the worst. There's always going to be that chance that you're going to get some daring that is going to go hands-on. I think most people won't. I think most people know better, especially like, I don't know if you ever heard my videos, I'll say, touch me and you go to jail. And I think when people hear that, they're like, okay, I think it kind of triggers something, but there are some people that just don't give a damn, and they're gonna, they're gonna whack you, and if they go to jail, then they'll deal with that later,
Yeah, a little unhinged or kooky.
Yeah.
If somebody wants to stop a First Amendment auditor from doing what they're doing, is there anything they could do or should do?
Well, nowadays there's a big, and this kind of ties into the whole like anti-auditor movement. There's an effort from, I like to call it the dark side, or actually I didn't come up with that, somebody else did, but when you're dealing with the anti-auditor channels, or the troll channels, whatever you want to call them, there is an effort to stop First Amendment auditors, and honestly, it doesn't even come from the quote unquote troll channels. There was, and this was only a couple years ago. There was an incident, this was in Beverly Hills actually, the city of Beverly Hills Police Department, when they would encounter auditors, they would start playing Beatles songs. Because Beatles, Northern songs are heavily copyrighted, just like Bob Dylan and the Eagles, and so, there was a big uproar over that. And
why were they trying to play that music?
To get the video demonetized, Now, like I remember I did a video up at the Canadian border, up at an area called Peace Arch Park. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but it's a really interesting place. And I did because it was at the Canadian border, at the end, I played a version of "O Canada" when I was doing the credits, and I had the American flag next to the Canadian flag and so forth. And that video got demonetized, which I mean, I wasn't, I'd rather the video get demonetized and stay up than the video coming down. Right. So at least if it gets demonetized, like, okay, well then there goes all that, I have nothing to show for all that hard work, but the video's still there. People can still watch it, they can enjoy it. So if I had a choice, I'd say, yeah, leave the video up, and,
Perfect.
If it gets that big slash mark, then, also, another thing that a lot of the troll channels are, and this more ties into the anti-auditor side, is what you're getting now is people in that community that will go out of their way to, especially when you're dealing with private business, government places too, will contact that business and say, there's a video of you online, this is the channel it's on, and this is how you do a privacy complaint. This is how you
Wow,
get
they'll
it.
walk them through it.
So what you're having now is, and I've even started doing it myself, because we got to protect our art, where I won't say where I'm at, which I hate, because I like saying where you know, you look at my older videos, I would always say, hey, I'm in the city of Huntington Beach, I'm here outside of da-da-da-da-da, and then I'd go in the whole history narration and stuff. And, but now you're starting to see more and more auditors now to kind of, I'm not saying somebody can't find out where the place is, but it makes it a little bit more difficult. So instead of saying, hey, I'm here in the city of Huntington Beach auditing this, I don't know, McDonald's or whatnot, I'll say, oh, I'm out here in sunny Southern California auditing. It's like, okay, well, that narrow.
Nice.
Pretty
Covering
big.
your tracks a little bit.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate, but yeah, there's just, and I'm not saying it always works, but you know, when it comes to like privacy complaints and stuff, it's really hit or miss. You know, I mean, I've fought privacy complaints and won. And then there's also been times where I've just ignored them, where I didn't even respond, and like, you know, a year or two later, the video's still there. So it's really hit or miss. But there is that effort to, and I think that's one of the ways that the, you know, the anti-auditor movement is trying to like keep the First Amendment auditing movement from going forward.
Why are First Amendment audits so important?
I believe that First Amendment audits are extremely important in the sense that it really brings awareness to a right that we all have, and that's the right to go out and take photos and videos in public. And I'm not talking about, you know, specifically the right to do First Amendment audits, but just the right, if you see something interesting and you want to take a picture of it, you know, or take a little video or do a selfie or something, are you going to have some, you know, overzealous security guard coming out and trying to tell you, oh, get out of here, you can't do that, you know? I mean, I had that happen before I was a First Amendment auditor. I'll give you I remember I was at the Greyhound bus depot in downtown San Diego, which isn't even there anymore. And a friend of mine was, I was saying goodbye to a friend of mine, and I took a picture of the bus depot and sent it to him, like, hey, remember that time when the last time I saw you, we said farewell? Sure enough, some security guard came out and was like, oh, let me see that photo. And this was years ago. I was, and I'm like, hey, I just took a photo for my friend. Well, you're going to have to delete that. Yeah, of course, this was years ago before I was aware. But, I mean, think of how many times that happens to people that don't know, or like, oh, I want to take a picture of Junior standing in front of the old Huey helicopter in front of the Air Force base, and then you're going to have some punk MP come out and they're like, oh, you can't take a picture of that, it's government property, Right. When, and that's one of the things that really, really frustrates me is when people, first of all, people that aren't in a position of power, trying to exert power over you, to me, that's worse than somebody who is in power, who's just, a little overzealous, or some cop that's having a bad day. I think it's worse when you're dealing with, I honestly, I think like private security are the worst, really. I think a lot of people take the First Amendment for granted. I really do. It's like, there's a saying that runs within the auditing community, rights are like muscles. If you don't use them, you lose them. I stole that from the Amagassett Press. So, but it's true, and I think that there needs to be more awareness. Like people need to know what their rights are, even if they're not going to go out. The average Joe Schmo is not going to go out and do a First Amendment audit, but people need to know that they do have these rights. I think that's extremely important.
So, how long have you been conducting First Amendment audits? How did you first get started?
I got started doing First Amendment audits in 2015 when I came across, I started by going and watching those videos on YouTube, like police stops gone wrong, like dash cam footage of like somebody like peeling out on a cop, or, and I just always thought those videos were kind of interesting. And then I came across a video from a channel called First Amendment Tests, who is my biggest influence to me, he's like, the real OG in the auditing community. And I came across a video of him where he was filming outside of a Chevron refinery. Now when I first started watching it, I didn't understand why he was like, what's so interesting about filming the security booth in front of a refinery, unless you got like a fetish for oil or something. But And the security guard came out and just got right up in his face and was just really giving him a hard time. And I was like, and in my mind, even though I wasn't an auditor at that time, I was even thinking like, is that a law? Is it like, does he have the right to like, I mean, it looks like the guy's like not on their property. Like, can you make someone like leave because they're filming or? But it really goes back further than that, because going back to like 2009, 2010, I was a part of a comedy group called, which started out just as a YouTube channel, and the group was called No Act, and it's actually like Hawaiian pidgin slang for like, don't act up, don't be a fool. And it was a group of guys, and I was a part of this group. And what we were basically trying to do was be like a Hawaiian version of Jackass, you know. And so we were kind of trying to do like a milder version of the kind of stuff that the guys from Jackass were doing, mixing it in with like, you know, local slang and like local humor and stuff. And so we got a part in a local television show on the Pacific Network, and the show was called Shaka Shakedown. And the thing is they would feature one of our, you know, stunts or comedic sketches or whatever in every episode of that show, which came on once a week. And so we would go out and film this stuff ourselves, and then we would give it to the people at the TV station, and then they would, you know, put whatever they thought was the best. And we had different characters and so forth. But anyways, to get to the point I want to make is that when we would go out and film, chances are there would always be some security guard or some store manager or something that would come out and tell us, oh no, you can't film here, or you know, you got to go across the street, or you know, not in front of my business. And even back then, you know, obviously I didn't know anything about First Amendment auditing, but I remember thinking like, is that a law? Can they make you leave? Like, I mean, I understand this is their business, but they don't own the sidewalk. So even, you know, years before I became an auditor, I always, you know, and so then, you know, fast forward when I found like First Amendment Test channel, and then, you know, found, you know, other channels that were doing this thing called First Amendment auditing, it really made me flash back to that period of my life when I was living in Hawaii and I was doing those skits for the TV show, and we were having to deal with this kind of stuff. But all of us, I mean, you know, if I knew then what I know now, I would have just told them F off, you know, and we would, but, you know, back then, you know, we didn't know. We were just like, oh, okay, oh, sorry, and then we'd leave, you know. Oh, okay, let's go find another backdrop or whatnot.
How do you think your comedic origins have played into your current line of work? Like, it seems like you're really infusing your sense of humor into your audits.
People tell me that, you know, some of the stuff I say is funny, or I'm trying to be a comedian, or, you know, but I really don't think of it, like I'm not trying to be funny. Like when I'm doing my narration, I mean, it's great if people think it's funny, but I'm really not, I mean, maybe sometimes, I mean, a little bit of the time I cheat, but like most of the time it just comes out naturally. You know, like the whole thing, like the all right. I don't know why that caught on, because all I'm doing is saying, all right, you know, I mean, how many other people say that? You know, I'm sure Carol Burnett said that, you know, it's like, you know, but people just like, it just took off and, you know, formed a lot, and now it's like a signature part of my audits. But even now, like, I don't think there's anything, I mean, all right, like, you know, it's no different than saying okay, or, you know, far out, or, you know.
What other sayings have become popular with your following from your work?
Another example would be the fetish. Like, I have a fetish for, you know, it's just something that it just came out naturally. I honestly, I can't, like, you know, go back and think like, oh, where that came from really. It's just something that maybe I just at the time thought it sounded cheesy, and like, okay, I gotta say something, you know. And so I really, but a lot is just like with the oh right, it's something like where I wasn't like, hey, I'm trying to be funny, I'm trying to make people laugh. It just something that, but the handsome alerts, that's another story.
Tell me about that. Tell me about the handsome alerts.
Well, the handsome alerts really started it kind of, the origins of that, I say that like it's a biography, but like the origins of the Handsome Alert really goes back to when I was in the Philippines, you know, because I would go to the Philippines because I have people there that are like family, so I would spend a lot of time in Metro Manila. And there's a famous Filipino movie star there called Coco Martin. And Coco Martin's like the Brad Pitt of the Philippines. And so my like pickup line when I would meet guys would be like, oh, you're more guapo than Coco Martin. Guapo in Tagalog means handsome, you know. And that would, you know, I would say probably like 8.69 times out of 10 it would work. So the Handsome Alerts kind of like came from that. So like I would see these like nice looking specimens, and I would say, you know, oh, you're very handsome, you know. Obviously I'm not going to tell them they're more guapo than Coco Martin because they're not going to know who that is, but it's kind of me being silly, but at the same time it's also kind of like, oh, maybe there's that small fraction I'll get a phone number.
And when you're saying these like funny, disarming phrases to like the general public, how are they reacting? Does it throw them off, or do you feel like it actually like makes them step outside their box a little bit and see you as a human?
It's mixed. I mean, I think some people are flattered by it. They just kind of smile, oh, thanks, you know, like, oh, I wasn't expecting that. But then there's some people that maybe they feel a little uncomfortable. You tell like, oh, like, why is he telling me this, you know? And but I say most people. I mean, if you look at the videos, I think most people just kind of laugh it off, like, you know. But there are those that do. You know, I can't even think of a time. I'm sure if I went back through my catalog, I would find one, but I can't think of a time where anybody really got irate over a Handsome Alert. You know, I mean, they'll get irate over a camback, but not a Handsome Alert.
What about the fetish line? Does that ever like trigger people?
Now that, yeah, the difference between Handsome Alerts and the fetish line is that, like with the fetish line, people, yeah, like telling somebody they're handsome is like, oh, thank you, it's a compliment. But when they hear the word fetish, you know, that can mean a lot of different things, you know. And
so how would you use that? Give me an example of how you would use that, and then how somebody would react.
Well, I'll give you an example. I was I was auditing a marijuana dispensary in San Francisco with First Amendment tests, out of all people. And there was this security guard that was giving us a hard time. He was this big Samoan guy with this really, like, he had his hair like standing. I mean, he must have used like 69 gallons of hairspray to get his hair to stand up. And I mean, he just looked really, I don't know, whatever. People could draw their own conclusions. But, and he kept asking like over, like, why are you filming the dispensary? Why, you know, like over. And finally I just said, I have a fetish for dispensaries. And that just, and then he went and got the manager. He says he's got a, oh no, I told him, I said I have a cannabis fetish. That's what I told him. He's got a fetish for cannabis. And a fetish for cannabis, like, well, I'm gonna have to call someone and they're gonna have to come out here and deal with you and your fetishes, you know? And what's weird about like fetish is because it doesn't necessarily have to mean anything sexual. You know what I mean? Like, you know, you hear people that have like, oh, like a foot fetish, or, you know, it's just, I don't know, but it's just that word. It's one of those words that just kind of triggers people. And
because of the importance of the First Amendment, would you say that this line of work gives you a sense of purpose?
The thing about First Amendment auditing is I really feel that there is a sense of purpose, and I feel it can be very rewarding, especially like I was talking about earlier when you're dealing with you know, the passes, the positive responses where the people walk away, you know, hey, maybe they learned something, maybe I learned something, but everybody, you know, has come to somewhat of an understanding. So I think it's very rewarding work, I really do. I mean, I know people on the other side don't see it that way, but, you know, I feel that, you know, even when, you know, I'll even take it a step further. Like, even when you get a big freak out, I'll give you an example. I audited this place. It was this place called well, I don't want to say the name of it, but it was like kind of a religious culty type of place. And the guy that came out really was giving me a hard time. I found out he was actually the security guy, even though he wasn't in a uniform. And we went back and forth for a while, and the police came, and ultimately the police didn't do anything, and I was able to continue what I was doing, and then eventually I left. But I decided to go back there, like, I want to say like a year and a half later, to do like a follow-up. I think follow-up audits are important. And I went back, and the same guy was there, and he came out, and he actually apologized. And he said, you know what, and one of the things he told me was that, you know, I learned a lot after that experience. You know, it really opened my eyes, you know, not just to what First Amendment audits are, but just the whole thing about, you know, hey, filming in public and you know, public photography. So that was like a classic example of like where I felt like, oh, hey, you know, like, I'm not saying he learned it all from me, but what I was doing led him to maybe do some more research, or, you know, look into, you know, what the First Amendment audit movement is and the legalities of public photography. And his attitude was completely, you know, but he didn't buy me a margarita, so, but still, you know, I walked away from it. You know? Yeah.
No, that's great. It sounds like you were like the first domino in the domino effect of him learning.
Yeah. So that I feel like that. Like, seriously, like to me, I feel like that's something where I can look back on that and be like, hey, you know, I changed someone's point of view in a positive way.
Wow.
You know, regardless of what he thinks about people like me or what I do, at least now he knows, hey, and you know, maybe he does have a little bit more respect because he did apologize to me. So
that's powerful.
Yeah.
And what about the community? How many followers do you have right now?
My channel has grown. I have about 67,000 subscribers, and that doesn't even count like people that aren't subscribed. You know, there's a lot of people that watch those videos that don't even have YouTube accounts, that just go on and, you know, watch without being signed in. So it's probably bigger than that. Just like these channels that you see that have over 100,000 subscribers, you know, they probably have more like 200,000 or 300,000. Just that, you know, people that aren't actually signed in, or
right.
You know.
And does that give you like a sense or like a feeling of community?
This is really a community, the First Amendment audit, and this is one of the things that I like about it, or especially in the old days, especially when there were fewer of us, because it really was like a family, and we all had each other's back. A lot of that has changed now. Now there's a lot of lines, and you know, some people get really territorial, and you know, what are you doing in my county? And but you know, it wasn't like that so much back in the day. But there's still that, you know, when like. I can almost guarantee if I went and did an audit right now and somebody came out and attacked me, or the police showed up and falsely arrested me, there'd be all sorts of audit channels mirroring that video, you know, calling the police station, calling that business, going there to protest or whatever, you know. And not just me, but, you know, I've even seen that with smaller channels. You know, people that have 200 subscribers, like, oh, you know, Green Hat Audits got, you know, body slammed, you know, oh, wow, well, we're going to go over there and, you know, and it's a show of force, you know, just to be like, hey, you're not going to do that to our people. So right. I like that. I like the unity. I really do.
Nice.
You know?
And are there like good aspects and bad aspects of that? Like the community coming down on a place I can see being a positive aspect, because maybe it makes those businesses or individuals accountable for their poor actions. But on the flip side of that, like, can it like disrupt normal business operations and things like that?
The flip side to, you know, showing force and, you know, coming together and, you know, going to this business or this police station or whatnot to protest is that, you know, it can affect people that are like let's say for whatever reason I'm filming in front of some steakhouse, and the manager comes out and assaults me and breaks my camera or whatnot, and then the police show up and they falsely arrest me. The auditing community is going to converge on that place, and they're going to show up and they're going to stand outside, they're going to film, you know, and you know, basically protest, which is, you know, also First Amendment protected activity. And that's good in the sense that, yeah, like they're letting them know, like, what you did was effed up, and we're not going to tolerate that. You know, you need to know you can't do that. The downside is that maybe that's going to affect their sales, and maybe the average person who's working there, who's maybe bussing tables, or you know, bartending, or you know, washing dishes or whatever, now their livelihood could be affected, and they weren't even involved in the incident itself. You know, they just worked there, but now they could potentially suffer, because you know what happens when business is slow. People's hours get cut, they get sent home early. You know, oh, you know, yeah, you're scheduled to close, but it's too slow, so go home, and it's 7:30 or something. You know, and that's where I feel like, you know, to me that's the downside of it. That's the part that I don't like. Even though I do feel it's important to like stand together, and I'm all about protesting when there's an injustice, but that kind of stuff, that's where I kind of go, you know what?
Do your followers support you in other means, like maybe via encouragement of your work, or maybe like financial donations, any support like that?
I think the best thing that people can do if they want to support the auditing community is to watch the videos. Press thumbs up, leave a comment. You know, even if it's just, hey, good video, that helps with the analytics. You know, yeah, if they want to click the link to the Margarita Fund, I'm more than happy to do that. I myself don't really push that. You know, maybe I should, you know, because this does get expensive, but I'm happy just to know that people still are interested, that you know, I'm still relevant, that people still want to watch. And you know, as long as people are watching, I'll keep doing it. If people aren't watching anymore, then you know, what's the, you know? So I'm, because you know, like going towards like the humble side of things is like, I look at it like, when you look at, just narrow it down to YouTube, look at all the hundreds of thousands of millions of videos or whatnot on YouTube. And the fact that somebody's going to spend, you know, 10, 15, 20, 25 minutes watching one of my videos out of all the stuff that they could watch on YouTube, I mean, that, to me, that's flattering beyond anything I can describe.
Do you typically work alone, or do you work with other First Amendment auditors?
Since I've been in this community, I've had the privilege of being able to work alongside a lot of other really creative and I'll say talented auditors. And what's really great about that is that, you know, you can kind of play off each other. Like, it doesn't always work out this way. Like, I think, for example, me and First Amendment Rights, like, we really clicked together when we would audit. We would just kind of like bounce off each other. Another one is like Denver Metro audits. You know, me and him, it's like, when I audit with him, it's just like very natural. Like, I know when to start talking and he knows when to be quiet. I know when to be quiet and he knows when to start talking. It's just a very, you know, natural. It's like Simon and Garfunkel, you know? I mean,
and what are some of the benefits of working together?
I like working alone in a lot of ways. However, there's safety in numbers, and I feel that, you know, there's more of a safety aspect to working with someone else, because, you know, if something happens to you, you got that extra set of eyes, you got that extra lens, you know, where when you're by yourself, you're more vulnerable. However, the thing I like about working alone is I can pretty much dictate the whole situation, you know, where sometimes when you're with another person, you know, you might, not always, but sometimes you might find, you know, especially if things get heated where, you know, you're talking over each other or whatnot. And sometimes the viewers get frustrated with that. But really, the safety in numbers. But, you know, if you find someone like my Central Coast auditing partner, Matthew the King, you know, he's a real small channel. He doesn't even really like post most of the audits. He just leaves that to me. But he's a really good backup. You know, he's a good person to have because he's really into it. He believes in the movement, and you know, he's not afraid to stand up. And that's another thing that's important too. When you do go out with somebody, you want to go out. You don't want to go out with somebody who's a scaredy cat. And I've done that before. I've gone out with people where they're like, you know, you find yourself in a heated situation, and they're like, we're you know, where's Joe Bob at, you know?
Are there auditors that you don't really jive with, their style, or maybe your creative differences are so wildly different that you don't even want to associate yourself? Like, you're on the opposite ends of the spectrums of auditors?
just as I've been very fortunate to collaborate with some really talented auditors, here's another flip side. There's also certain people in the community that, like, I wouldn't touch with a 69-foot pole. I mean, you know, I guess I'll keep the names hidden to protect the guilty. But, you know, I mean, yeah, it just, and I'm not saying that, like, it's not a matter of, like, well, some of them got, you know, some serious issues, but, like, because this is such a big community that obviously there's going to be, you know, you got people of all different types of walks of life. And, but, you know, unfortunately, there are certain people that I believe are in it for the wrong reasons, and I know I'm not the only one that feels that way, but there are certain people that get into the auditing game that, you know, there's other motives.
What kind of actions will you see them do that you don't really agree with, or make your stomach churn maybe?
One of the things that I am not really big on is the whole, like, you know, cop hating rhetoric. Like, the way I look at it is like this: like, I don't hate cops, I don't like bad cops, but even good cops don't like bad cops. You know, it's just, so I'm not into, I've never been into this whole, like, F the police and, you know, calling cops piggies and, you know, fresh bacon and stuff like that. I mean, I'm not putting anybody down who does, you know, I mean, it's freedom of speech, you know. If you want to call a cop a pig, I mean, it's just not really my thing. You know, I'm not, you know, out to try to make cops look bad. I'm not out to try to make anybody look bad. I look at it like this way: people make themselves look bad when they behave foolishly, whether it's a cop or a security guard or some average Joe Blow, you know. And unfortunately, when you audit with the wrong people, you know, sometimes you can find their actions can find you in a situation that you don't want to be in, you know, whether it's being assaulted or having your equipment broken or getting arrested or worse, you know.
That being said, have you ever been in situations, either solo or with somebody, where you've been assaulted?
I got assaulted once outside, and this was me by myself. I was auditing the Guatemalan consulate in Los Angeles, right in the city of LA, and the security guard came out and got really huffy with me and just kept, like, walking into me, and every time, and eventually it got to a point where he was, like, pushing me out into the street, and then he turned around and started to walk away, and I just got back on the, like, I'm not gonna stand out in the street, this is freaking LA. And so I got back on the sidewalk, and he came over, and when he went to grab my camera, because I have a camcorder that has a viewfinder that opens up, and so when he grabbed my camera, what he did was he didn't grab the lens like a lot of people would go, like, ugh, you know. He grabbed the viewfinder, so when I pulled away, it ripped the viewfinder. And long story short, you know, of course the police came. You know, they didn't arrest him. They ended up referring it to the city attorney. And what the city attorney ended up doing was they ended up, like, interviewing us individually. And they told me, like, well, if he pays, you know, if he compensates you for the damage that he caused to your camera, are you fine with that? If not, then we can move forward with a prosecution for misdemeanor battery. And I'm like, you know, I'm not interested in ruining somebody's life, you know, because obviously that means the guy's going to lose his guard card. I mean, yeah, he shouldn't have done what he did, but, you know, I'm not in the business of ruining somebody's life. You know, hey, pay, you know, you damaged my property, pay me for it, you know. And so, and that was nice too, because then, because there's always a chance that the city attorney could say, well, no, we're not going to prosecute, this is a civil matter. And then I got to sue him in small claims court. So this was nice. It was a nice way where, you know, the city attorney's office, the government, the people, you know, intervened and mediated the situation. And I think, you know, we both walked away from it, you know, better. Another real extreme example, even more extreme, I would say, than what happened at the Guatemalan consulate, was in Morro Bay. And both of those incidents actually occurred in 2018. So there just must have been something in the air that year. But I was filming, and you know what's interesting about the Morro Bay audit was that was in February of 2018, and by that point I had already been auditing in that area for a couple of years. So most of the, you know, I'd pretty much hit every municipal law enforcement agency in that area. I'd done all the sheriff stations, all the PDs, the CHP. I mean, even did the FBI office in Santa Maria. So I figured by that point, like, you know, I would probably get like maybe a mild reaction. Somebody might stick their head out the door, hey, what are you doing, or whatnot. But I ended up getting into a confrontation with a senior. Well, they came out. It was a senior officer and an individual who turned out to be the chief of police. His name was Gregory Allen. You know, you should Google him. And that was what. That's probably like my most, like, I guess you could say, infamous audit. That was where they really what it came down to is they wanted my ID and I refused to give it to them because I wasn't committing a crime. And they just threw me to the ground, literally slammed my head in the pavement. And like, I saw stars. I mean, I'm not trying to put a lot on this for dramatic purposes, but I did. I saw stars. And threw me in the back of a hot police car for like 45 minutes to an hour. And then they released me. They let me go, kicked me loose with no explanation or no apology or anything. But that blew up. That was like one of the first big, this was before Leon Valley. This was before the protests in Almost Park. This was like the first really, or one of the first really big like audit protests that attracted a lot of people from a lot of different areas that, you know, came together and were like, man, this is really effed up. And yeah, Morro Bay got a lot of calls. They got a lot of people going there, like I said, protesting, auditing, and it kind of like, it really put Morro Bay on the map. Because before that, the only thing Morro Bay was known for was a dormant volcano. You know, so.
And what was the result of those protests?
Well, ultimately, the chief ended up resigning. I think I'm sure that probably the city manager probably asked him to step down. I mean, I don't have any proof of that, but, and he was a brand new chief too. He came in, he had only been chief, like, I don't even think, not even 6 months when that happened with me. Like, I think he'd been chief for like 5 months. And then that happened with me, and it was just a few months after that he stepped down. So what, he was a chief for, and it's so funny because, you know, KSBY News said that, oh, well, there was, the city of Morro Bay in a statement said there's no specific reason for Chief Allen's sudden departure. It's like, yeah, like, you know, you hire this police chief at, you know, well, I don't know what his salary was, but, and then what, 7-8 months later, he's splitting. I mean, come on, you know, like, I'm sure, I mean, common sense tells me, I'm sure the city manager probably told him, but basically, to sum it all up, without rambling, which I've already done, he ended up resigning.
I feel like that's a testament to the power of doing these audits. Maybe it keeps government officials accountable for not like going overboard.
Yeah, exactly. And here's a funny story. Well, it's not really a funny story. It's kind of it's a story. I was actually at the San Luis Obispo County Regional Airport. I was waiting to board. I was flying to Denver, and so I was actually at the bar ordering a drink, and this guy comes up to me, and he goes and he says my name, and I was like, yeah, and I look, and it was not the chief, but the senior officer. His name was Greg Gruich. He was because it was him and the chief who were the ones that threw me to the ground, and he apologized. He said he was sorry, and you know, he of course he tried to put it on the chief, like, you know, I didn't want to detain you. I was ready to release you, but you know, Alan was the, you know, so but he did apologize, you know, and I thought that's kind of a rarity. You don't get that too often, you know. So I thought that was. You know, that was another example where I, you know, walked away from that. I mean, that wasn't an audit, but I walked away from that encounter, you know, feeling good about myself. Like, okay, well, you know, obviously he got educated, And he didn't have to walk. I mean, some people, naysayers would say like, oh, he's just trying to save face or whatnot. Well, why? I mean, the dude's retired now. He's not even a cop anymore. Like, he didn't have to come over. And I mean, he obviously recognized me. I didn't recognize him. I was just waiting for my margarita.
Can you tell me a little bit about the anti-auditor or the frauditor community or movement, however you would classify that?
The anti-auditor movement is really interesting because, there's always been trolls, I mean, I don't know how else to call them, people that have like little sock puppet accounts that, they're not really channels, but it's just like people that like and comment on videos. They have a little account with their name on it with no picture. And so it started like, and I would see the same people like leaving like troll comments. Like, I remember there was this one guy, I haven't seen him around in a while, Tom Douchebag Cop Block, and he would, because there's a guy, Tom Zebra, who's a very famous cop watcher, and he would, always say the same crap. Like, he would say like, oh, Methy Nathanial never audits the unemployment office. I wonder why, like trying to imply like, I don't have a job or whatnot. So it's funny, I was actually working for a laboratory at the time, a place called Central Coast Pathology, which isn't even in business anymore. I was a lab courier, so I had like a 45-minute lunch break. And so I was like, you know what? I should go audit the unemployment office and dedicate it to this troll. And I did. I looked at it, was the SLO County Unemployment Office, and I went there and did an audit, and it turned out to be a pretty decent audit. And I dedicated it to that troll. And this one's going out to Tom Douchebag Cop Block, or whatever he was calling himself at that time. And it was the only video that he never commented on. And I made sure in my narration to say like, yeah, I have just enough time to do this audit because I'm actually at work right now and I'm on my break, and so, I mean, it was just, but it morphed into a thing where now you had like people creating channels specifically for the purpose of trolling auditors. And I remember talking to a guy who used to be in the auditing scene, and him telling me, I think, this was probably like 3 or 4 years ago, but I remember him saying like, I bet you what we're gonna start seeing happening is we're gonna see these like anti-auditor channels really start to get big, and they're gonna be, getting thousands of views just like the auditors. And that's exactly what happened. I mean, you look at like Frauditor Troll, I mean, he's got about, I think maybe he's got a little less, but about the same amount of subscribers that I have. And then like Dr. Dave has like over 200,000 subscribers. And so like what this guy predicted was exactly what happened. And it just, it's kind of like, it makes me stop and think like, are there really like that many people out there that hate us? But I remember there's a channel called MERB. It's MERB34ST. It's supposed to be Merbeast, but he's an attorney up in Sacramento. You should talk to him. But I remember him telling me once, and I've always had a real good relationship with MERB, but he said, you know what, you guys, meaning auditors, you guys don't have the support you think you do. Like, yeah, you have your followers and your people that comment and your, all that, but the general public as a whole, like you just don't have the support. Now, whether that's accurate or not accurate or whatnot, when I started seeing all these like troll channels start popping up, it really kind of made me wonder, like, because you look at some of theirs, I mean, look at like Frauditor Troll's most recent video. I think it got like 20-something thousand views. So like, obviously a lot of people are watching.
And are their criticisms of your work valid?
The issue that I have with a lot of the troll channels is when they try to say things like, oh, well, auditors are all criminals and auditors are all unemployed losers. Well, like, that's not the case. Like, I work a full-time job and it's not YouTube, I mean, this definitely ain't paying the bills. But, you know, so that's annoying. Also, when they say like, well, all auditors are criminals. Well, like First Amendment tests, you know, my biggest influence, like I mentioned earlier, I mean, the guy works for the state, you know, like, I mean, obviously he's not a criminal. I mean, he's never committed a crime in his life. And so it's just, you know, it's some of them, it's that same narrative, like over and over again. Now, I believe in giving credit where credit is due, like certain, like for Auditor Troll, for example, they do make some valid points about, they probably shouldn't be saying this, you know, bootlicker time, but they do make some valid points about things. I mean, a lot of what they say I don't agree with, and just like they don't, obviously, you know, we're on both sides, we're on opposite sides of the fence, but there are certain critiques that they make about certain individuals in the community that I go, like not something I would say publicly, but yeah, they are kind of spot on with that, you know.
And have their criticisms ever made you change your approach or improve your work?
Well, I mean, the thing about, hold on, pause for a second. I'm trying to think of how to answer that. I would say no. I'll say it like this is how I respond. But there's nothing that they can really say, and I'm not just talking about Fraud or Troll, but any of those troll channels that's really going to change anything about the way I do my audits, because, you know, I'm not breaking the law. You know, it's not a crime to film in public, you know, whether somebody likes it or doesn't like it or whatnot. So, you know, could other people in the community learn from their critiques? Probably. But, and by saying that, I'm not trying to suggest that like I'm the perfect auditor, I'm the Aldo auditor. I am comfortable with the way that I perform my activism, the way I conduct my audits. I don't need somebody else, you know, telling me to, you know, we'll do this or do that. You know.
Are most of the criticisms coming from that part of YouTube, or are you ever getting criticisms in your personal life, like from friends or family?
The hardest thing is not really with the trolls, but the hardest thing is like, I've lost friends over this, like close friends. I lost a relationship with somebody that I was really in love with and wanted to be with. That ended because of this. My family, I'm not saying they haven't disowned me or anything, but they definitely don't like what I do, and I know that there's people that you know, say stuff to them, you know, especially like up in my area, because like once again I'm like one of the only ones that does anything up there, and so yeah, you know, I get the attitude. Like when that thing happened in Morro Bay, you know, I was working at the laboratory, you know, as a lab courier, and I mean, I didn't get fired, because I don't think legally they could fire me, but I got the attitudes, I got the stares, and I got the, you know, I could tell like they didn't really want me there anymore, and I ended up quitting anyways and going back to the Philippines. But yeah, you know, those are the kind of things that kind of hurts, when the people, like a troll can say whatever they want, you know, like, okay, whatever, it's going to go in one ear and out the other. But you know, when it comes down to like family, close friends, relationships, that kind of thing, that's what kind of like, that's kind of like a knife in the heart, you know. It's like, okay, you know, you can't, you know, I get it, you know, you're not really on board with what I do, but when you're gonna like, you know, look down on me for something I believe in, you know, it's like, okay, you know. And, you know, obviously I had a choice. I mean, I could have said like, okay, I'm not going to do this anymore. But at the same time, this is like something I believe in and I feel very strongly about. And you know, so obviously I chose to let the relationship end. But, you know, then again, you know, if he wasn't happy with auditing, you know, then what else would he have been happy with maybe later on down the road, you know? Yeah, but that kind of stuff is hard, you know, because it really, like I said, it's like a knife. It's like a knife in the heart, you know, when you know, like, and it's so frustrating because you can, you know, you can explain something like like for example, like an ex-boyfriend or an ex-girlfriend or something, you can explain to them what you're doing and why you do it, and the importance of it, and all the things that, you know, I've talked about. But like, you know, if they're not understanding, if they're not in that world, that same world that you are, it's I don't want to say it just goes in one ear and out the other, but it's not going to sink in. They're not. They're just not going to see it the same way that you do. You know?
Would you say you didn't feel like seen in that moment?
That I didn't feel like
seen, like they understood you and.
Oh yeah, I felt like I wasn't, you know, understood, and I felt like, you know, like he didn't understand it as much as I wanted to make him understand it. It just wasn't, you know what I mean? You know, it's like trying to tell like a bear that he should wipe his butt after he takes a dump in the woods. You just can't. Oh, what a horrible! I hope my ex doesn't watch this, but no, yeah.
If you had to boil the past 10 years down to like one message, if you could get one message out to everybody on the beach here, everybody in the United States, maybe in the world, what would you want to let them know about the First Amendment or freedom of speech or freedom to record?
What I'd like to say to anyone, whether they're interested in auditing themselves, or they just enjoy watching these kinds of videos, or maybe they're just some average Joe Blow that likes to take pictures of birds or whatever. You know, I think the message is that for me, the way I've always looked at it is that, like, you know, when it comes to auditing, it's not about appeasing people's feelings. It's not about, you know, whether somebody likes or dislikes what you're doing. It's an exercise of rights, like I said earlier. And so you may not like it, you may not agree with it, you know, you may love it, you may hate it, whatever. But, you know, your likes or dislikes, you know, don't trump my rights. And, you know, so I think that's that's my message of the moment, so to speak. My final message is directed at the auditing community and the auditors themselves. I know in recent times there's been a big divide, and there's been a lot of people that are either on this side of the fence or that side of the fence, or team so-and-so or team this person. And I realize that we're all different. We all have different personalities. We all have different styles and approaches to our audits. Some people will think that we should just stick to auditing the government and the police. Other people, like myself, think we should just audit anything and everything, well, almost everything. But regardless of our styles and our personal beliefs and philosophies or whatnot, I think that we should all have a common respect for each other, because regardless of what our styles are or what our personal opinions are, we're all in the same business. We're all standing up for our rights, and we're all doing something that's hopefully, you know, educating people and sending a positive message as far as being able to bring awareness to public photography. So, you know, let's stop the infighting, and let's just all make it about love. As Ringo Starr would say, peace and love, peace and love. Yeah.